Mark chapter 13 and verse 18. And pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, for in those days shall be affliction, such as was not from the beginning of the creation which God created unto this time, neither shall be. And except that the Lord had shortened those days, no flesh should be saved. But for the elect's sake, whom he hath chosen, he hath shortened the days. Shalom, brothers and sisters. This is your brother Hawayala. I want to give all glory and praises to our Heavenly Father Yahweh. In the name of our Lord and Savior, Yahawashi, grace and mercy be abound to the hopeful elect scattered throughout the four corners of the earth that are waiting on the second coming of our Lord and Savior, Yahawashi HaMashiach. Going into this lesson just concerning, the whole issue with the energy crisis. As you know, earlier this year, we did a lesson called The Dark Winter, which basically was dealing with some of the issues that can come up in a time of trouble, which could be orchestrated in the wintertime. I highly recommend that y'all watch this video just to kind of get an understanding of what they could be planning. As you do know, they did make statements many times, on media as far as the politicians and different people, lesser luminaries, that saying about the chances of a dark winter or troubling times as things begin to chill on the earth, especially in places in the Western world, as what is quote unquote known as the Western world. And many of these things they're trying to orchestrate, which is part of their agenda, which we'll get into and show you how it is part of their agenda. Okay, so I'm going to go through some various articles just concerning this particular crisis, and some of the statements have been made by various people and what the reporters are saying. And then we're going to kind of decipher what they're planning on doing and why they're planning on doing it in regards to some of their global agendas. Now, this is from CNN Business. Saw this actually a couple of weeks ago. I had emailed this to myself, but I did not have a chance to do anything on it at the time. But I did get another article that I wanted to also add in addition to this. So it says here, a global energy crisis is coming. There's no fix. There's no quick fix. Now remember the word global, okay? So the global energy crisis is coming. And we're going to show you why they're putting this stuff out there. And one of the good reasons, one of the good things about going through mainstream media outlets is because a lot of times they're projecting their agenda that they've already had in store many years ago, okay? Sometimes with alternative media, you might get actual some good information, but sometimes even misinformation, because sometimes people are just trying to add more on top of what it really is, but sometimes they're on point. Okay, and depending on where you go to, some are more reliable than others, and depending on who you follow, some of these people that are doing this, they don't have a perspective according to the scriptures. So if you go into these alternative news sources, a lot of times they can only go so far as to what they know and what they can perceive, but we know the bigger picture as to why they're doing these things and what is going to come out of this in terms of prophetically. Now they're already telling you that there's going to be no quick fix to this, meaning that this is something that's going to be an ongoing issue. All right, now this is an article by Julia Horowitz. Okay, and there's a lot of people. Pretty sure if you look up the background of some of these people, as you know, some of these people are connected to, they have relatives, in-laws, and they go to certain schools. They're part of certain organizations that understand the agenda, and they understand how to write these things. Now, it says here, astronomical increases in natural gas prices, skyrocketing coal costs, predictions of $100 oil. Okay. Now, there was another article I saw that was dealing with the coal costs, and I seen that China was doing some things to regulate some of the issues that they could have dealing with their own energy issues as well. All right. Now, a lot of these countries are interconnected, because one thing we have to understand is that not every country produces its own natural energy resources, whether it's coal, natural gas, or oil. So whenever they are able to, put together a crisis, you got to understand that it's really going to affect, many countries, okay? Because many of these same, natural resources, natural gas, oil, and coal, they're controlled by multinational corporations, which are primarily controlled, by Edomites, all right, by the Edomite elites. So whenever they're planning on doing something to, create shortages and basically create this false increased demand, they can manipulate many things. And remember, this has a trickle down effect on, the economy, because you got to deal with things in society that you need to sustain. All right, you have trucking companies. They're going to need gas, right, to move product. You got boats, you got ships, you got things like that that use energy, that use these energy sources to get their stuff done. So what does that do? It increases those other things, and it has a trickle down effect on, the goods, the resources that the common people buy. All right. So eventually this is going to lead to an increasing amount of price, which is inflation, which also can lead to hyperinflation. All right. So, they have like the consumer price index that they use to determine month to month when inflation occurs. And basically that's what's happening now on a month to month level. Now, part of it is something that people won't see in the market immediately, because it has to trickle down to those that are transporter of these goods and that are using these resources to move product across, the world, or across countries, or from, interstate highways. And then eventually that effect will be felt on the common man. All right, so it says here, a global energy crunch caused by weather and a resurgence in demand is getting worse, stirring alarm ahead of the winter when more energy is needed to light and heat homes. Governments around the world are trying to limit the impact on consumers, but acknowledge they may not be able to prevent bills spiking. Further complicating the picture is mounting pressure on governments to accelerate the transition to cleaner energy as world leaders prepare for a critical climate summit in November. Okay? So they're already letting you know that the light and heat in homes bills can spike. And the thing about it, they can create this because all they have to do is just basically say, hey, we don't have enough of this. So if you want to use this energy, we're going to charge you more for it. And this is going to make people have to naturally curtail their behavior in order to basically save money. Okay. And if it's so high that people are unable to pay it, then you're going to have people basically, pretty much, basically turning into ice. Basically, you can lead to hypothermia, where, sicknesses, okay, because many diseases, if you're not, your body, if your body is not in its preferred state as far as temperature, or your body has to work very hard to keep itself warm, then that can lead to you being susceptible to diseases. And as we know, as with the pandemic out there, if they basically put people in a situation where they're not able to stay warm, or they're not able to buy enough food to basically have enough energy in their body to fight off, diseases or any potential things that can happen to them as far as like an infection, then you can lead to a lot of people basically potentially dying. That's why I highly recommend y'all go back, watch the Dark Winter lesson to kind of see exactly, what that looks like, and basically see that this is something that they would love to do because of the fact of the detrimental impact it can have upon the masses in order to fulfill some of their agenda, which is, this particular thing we're dealing with the global energy crisis and just energy as it relates to just energy in general is just one of their many agendas. And, and you'll see later what I'm talking about. Now, it says here that they had a climate summit, okay, in November. So think about it. Right now, we're at the end of October. Now they're putting this narrative out there in the media that basically the things that are going on in regards to this global energy crisis is actually accelerating the transition to cleaner energy that they're going to talk about at the Critical Climate Summit in November. Okay, so this is all part of it. Remember, they're going to get all these global, these leaders. And remember, these leaders are reporting to the same entities. Okay, regardless of what part of the world they're in, they're reporting to the same entities. These presidents and these prime ministers and these heads of states. Okay, remember, there's nothing new under the sun. There's a reason why this place is called Mystery Babylon the Great, and why the things run the way they are. Because remember, the person who's leading this particular charge is going to be the head of Babylon, which right now is President Biden. If you go back into the book of Daniel, you'll know that the different heads of the different territories within the empire of Babylon the Great back in the ancient world during the time of Daniel, they all had to report. They all had to report to Babylon, or basically to Nebuchadnezzar, or whoever the king of Babylon was at that time, for these type of assembly meetings, okay, concerning things that they were going to do. So this is similar to the same thing, and we'll get into that, because I'll show you, what I'm talking about in regards to, these yearly meetings that are had at times. And a lot of times they have other meetings, especially when there's some kind of a quote unquote crisis going on. They'll have other meetings that they'll have world leaders come up to as well, just like in regards to this climate summit. Now, it says here, in China, rolling blackouts for residents have already begun, while in India, power stations are scrambling for coal. Consumer advocates in Europe are calling for a ban on disconnections if customers can't properly settle what they owe. So basically, what they're trying to do out there in Europe, they're understanding that some people are not going to be able to pay for this energy that's being used. And so because of that, they want to protect those that are unable to pay, and they don't want their stuff to be disconnected. Remember, when you look at what they're doing, winter is coming up in the northern hemisphere. If you understand how seasons work on this world, right now out in the southern hemisphere, they're not in winter. Okay, so this right here, you can focus on the northern hemisphere and a lot of the issues from China all the way to Babylon, and you can put this narrative out here about all these people that are affected by this energy crisis. All right. So it says here, this price shock is an unexpected crisis at a critical juncture. EU Energy Chief Kadri Simpson said Wednesday, confirming the bloc will outline its longer-term policy response next week. The immediate priority should be to mitigate social impacts and protect vulnerable households. Okay, so remember that. Remember, this was written on October 7th. Remember that date, Akim. The immediate priority should be to mitigate social impacts and protect vulnerable households. It says in Europe, natural gas is now trading at the equivalent of $230 per barrel in oil terms, up more than 130% since the beginning of September, and more than 8 times higher than the same point last year. So you're talking about an 8-time increase since the last October in terms of the price of natural gas in Europe. That's ridiculous. Imagine having a bill that probably last year was paid basically maybe $40 for your natural gas bill, and then this month it's $320. See, the consumer is the one who ends up having to pay the price on this. So, as we go on with this thing, I highly recommend, brothers and sisters, pay attention to those bills, and, try, if you can, to use the least amount of energy as you can, because of the way things are. For you brothers and sisters that live, in colder climates, the Midwest or on the East Coast, this is a time to probably get, a lot of leg warmers, a lot of, thermals, okay, some really heat warming blankets, some blankets that can keep your body warm, because you might have nights that you're not going to be able to run that heater. Okay, so you just never know how they're going to do this thing, and you don't want to be unprepared. So, I highly recommend, have extra, especially for those of y'all that are in those areas. Like if you're down south, if you're in, California, if you're in, most of Texas and, places like Florida, where it tends to be warmer than average compared to the other places throughout the country, then we might not have to worry about it as much. But for those of y'all might have to think about that. So make sure you have the proper things that you need to stay warm in the event that you have to keep, your heater off for a few days. Okay, you just never know. All right, so going on, it says, and this was according to the data from Independent Commodity Intelligence Services. It says in East Asia, the cost of natural gas is up 85% since the start of September, hitting roughly $204 per barrel. In oil terms, prices remain much lower in the United States, a net exporter of natural gas, but still has shot up to their highest levels in 13 years. A lot of it is feeding off of fear about what the winter's going to look like, said Nikos Salfos, an energy and geopolitics expert at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, a Washington-based think tank. He thinks that anxiety that has caused the market to break away from the fundamentals of supply and demand. And remember that, because I believe I've seen something in the article kind of discussing some of the same thing as how corporations would usually act in these particular times. Now, it says here, now, by the way, this picture, it looks like The Simpsons, right? But this is actually a steam bellows out of the cooling towers at a coal-fired power station in Nanjing, China. Okay. It says the frenzy to secure natural gas is also pushing up the prices of coal and oil, which can be used as substitutes in some cases, but are even worse for the climate. India, which remains extremely dependent on coal, said this week that as many as 63 of its 135 coal-powered power plants have 2 days or less of supplies. So this is a country of over 1 billion people. We're talking about, 1.1 or 1.2 billion people in India? And this is what they're saying, that basically almost half of their coal-fired power plants have less than 2 days supply worth of coal. All right? And remember, some of this stuff is exported from other countries. And you have these Edomite multinational corporations that control a lot of the supply, so they can fake supply, or they can say, hey, we're shutting down this place due to the CV19er restrictions. And then all of a sudden the production of coal is lower because they've used preemptive prices to basically pull workers away or cut down and shut down hours to basically lessen the production of said product, okay? Because remember, coal has to be mined at the end of the day. So that's going to require workers. It's going to require a labor force. So if you're making them not work, you're pulling them away from their jobs, then they're not able to produce the amount of coal that would be needed for the demand that's around the world, all right? So it says the circumstances are causing central banks and investors to worry. Rising energy prices are contributing to inflation, which already was a major concern as the global economy tries to shake off the lingering effects of the 19er. Dynamics over the winter could make matters worse. Okay? So, I don't want to read the whole thing, but you can get to this article and see the same thing. Let's see if there's anything interesting at these. If you look at this, look at the cost of power in Europe. Now look at green is United Kingdom, blue is France, red is Germany. Look at this. Gains have been most pronounced in the United Kingdom, which relies heavily on natural gas for electricity generation. And look at the price. This is September of 2019. Remember the outbreak happened in China around this time, winter of 2019. The alleged Wuhan, right? And then you see what happened. Now, as you see, as the year approached towards the end of the Julian year, okay, in December of 2020, it spiked up, okay? And then look at the considerable spike. Now, look at the percentage increase. Look at, they have to use this, but you would think this is like, usually on a regular chart, it'd be like 20%, it'd be like 0, 20%, 40%. They're using 200% increase on just this one bar. So you're talking about, when you look at the peak right now for people in the United Kingdom, the cost of power has risen up damn near 1,600%. It's unbelievable. Gas prices are ridiculous over there. I mean, listen, they're bringing it to the people, man. They really are. Let me just read this part. Jim Burkhard, who leads IHS market research on crude oil, energy, and mobility, said there's no immediate relief in sight. They're saying the same thing, bro. All these people, bro, they're all saying the same thing. This is some straight up, like, this is NWO stuff going on right here. Right? This is some Sinclair Group type speech that they are making. I'm telling you, man, they're saying the same thing. No end in sight. We can't see when this is going to end. Look what he said later. There's no Saudi Arabia for gas. Meaning, a Saudi Arabia for gas means a country that just that can supply an overabundance of a particular product. We know Saudi Arabia produces a large amount of oil, but they're saying there's no version of Saudi Arabia when it comes for natural gas. So he said, referring to a single supplier that can quickly ramp up natural gas production. This looks like it's going to endure for the winter in the northern hemisphere. What did I tell you? The northern hemisphere, because the northern hemisphere is the one that's currently going under winter. Okay. I wanted to say something about the earth, but I'm going to just not say anything. My brothers know what I'm talking about, but I digress. Russia could theoretically step up. It says Societe Generale noted that faster approval by German authorities of the political sensitive Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which would carry gas directly from Russia to Europe, would ease significant stress. Now, this is a very interesting thing. This is why it's good to kind of like know a little bit about what's going on regionally. Russia is one of the high producers of natural gas. One of the issues that's going on in the Middle East, as far as the whole issue with Syria and Assad, and why pretty much the Israeli state and the United States created ISIL or ISIS to go and destabilize that region, is because of the natural gas pipeline that will be supplied through that region, which is basically a point of contention between Russia and the West. There are certain companies that are actually there that are trying to set that thing up, that are ran by the big elite families, all right, such as the Rothschilds and others that are on some of these committees. You have like a Genie Oil or Genie Energy, which basically is an energy company that is based out over there, that these men that were named before are on their executive committee, or they're pretty much on their board of directors, so to speak. This is information that I saw maybe a year or two ago, I believe. It might have been 2 years ago now I think about it. 2 or 3 years ago, on a channel called Blackstone Intelligence by a guy by the name of Jake Morphonios, which some of you brothers may be familiar with, okay? I don't know if the video is still up, but if it is, I highly recommend you try and, look for it and go to that channel and see the breakdown over the whole issue with natural gas, okay? So, as we go on, it says on Wednesday, Russian President Vladimir Putin suggested that Russia could increase its output, saying that state-owned gas giant Gazprom has never refused to increase supplies to its consumers if they submit appropriate bids. But Neil Chapman, senior vice president at ExxonMobil, emphasizes the short-term constraints at an industry conference this week. Of course, there's great concern, Chapman said at the Virtual Energy Intelligence Forum. In our industry, because it's capital intensive, you can't just turn on the supply. So it says crisis with a cost. The best case scenario, according to Burkhard, is that winter with average temperatures allows pressures to lift in the second quarter of 2022. But severe weather in the coming months would create huge strains, particularly in countries that rely heavily on natural gas for energy production, like Italy and the United Kingdom, which we already saw the chart as an example. Britain is in a particularly tough spot because it lacks storage capacity and is dealing with the fallout from a broken power line with France. And then this is basically the liquefied natural gas storage tanks as seen in southeast England. Okay, they don't have enough of the ability to store. So it says here that the United Kingdom is arguably at the highest risk of Europe's major economies of a winter supply shortfall. Henning Gloystein, director of Energy, Climate, and Resource Team at consultancy Eurasia Group, said in a note to clients this week, should this happen, the government would likely demand factories to reduce output and gas consumption in order to ensure household supply. So what that means, rationing. Okay, rationing is a big part of the agenda. The massive jump in energy costs, which shows no signs of abating, again, same thing, no signs of slowing down, no signs of being fixed, no signs of abating, okay, they keep on repeating it, is fanning inflation fears, which already has been forcing policymakers to carefully consider their next steps. Energy prices in developed countries rose 18% in August, the fastest pace since 2008, according to data released Tuesday by the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, and that was before the situation deteriorated significantly in recent weeks. So they're saying the same thing. Let me see if there's any new thing there. No, not really. So remember, this is on October 7th. This one right here was October 26th. All right, so you see here, same, this is CNN Business. Energy crisis will set off social unrest. Private equity billionaire warns. Okay, so remember the social issues, and that was the article that was written on the 7th. Well, guess what? They're predicting social unrest due to this. All right, because what they wanted to do is they want to bring certain levels of crises to the people, so the people can basically tell the world leaders who are their like paternal figures to them. Okay, hey, we don't like this. Do something about it. And then they can bring their own solution, and then they can basically put draconian measures down upon the people to basically limit their consumption of energy. But the people are going to fall right into the trap. Okay? So, I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to read the statement of what was said by this guy, all right, who is a private equity billionaire. And those of y'all who don't know who what Blackstone is, okay, look it up. Look up some of these companies. BlackRock. There's some big companies. Accenture. Man, there's some huge companies that people don't even know about that are freaking making money. They have all kind of government contracts, and they do a lot of the bidding of the elites in regards to New World Order agendas. All right, so let's go ahead and read this. It said Blackstone CEO Stephen Schwarzman warned Tuesday that high energy prices will likely set off social unrest around the world. We're going to end up with a real shortage of energy. And when you have a shortage, it's going to cost more, and it's probably going to cost a lot more. The private equity billionaire told CNN's International Richard Quest at a conference in Saudi Arabia. Okay, let me go ahead and go down. Now, by the way, as of today, or as of the 26th, it says that the gas prices in the United States, the national average was $3.40. It is noticeably higher. In fact, I was at the pump yesterday, and I believe near my house when I pumped it, I think it was like $2.95 or $2.96. We were under $2 for a very long time down here in Texas, okay? And now it's creeped into towards the $3 range. If you're trying to get premium, oh my goodness. I mean, at this point, you're paying like probably $4 out here in Texas. You can imagine what people are paying in states like California, right? For those of y'all in California, y'all know the deal, right? So we're seeing that this is going to have an effect. It says natural gas is, gas prices have likewise skyrocketed, especially in Europe and Asia, prompting shutdowns of factories. So look, natural gas prices prompting shutdown of factories. Think about that. See, people understand that this has an effect on other things other than just energy. Okay, it has a lot of effect on the business world as well in terms of production. Okay, this is what else he says. He says you're going to get very unhappy people around the world in the emerging markets in particular, but in the developed world. Okay, so in the developed world, what's the developed world? Not the developing nations. The developed world is basically first world countries. Okay, so they want to bring crisis into these first world countries. Okay, so not just emerging markets, but in first world countries, developed world. All right, we already saw the chart on the United Kingdom, and remember, some of these things that are happening. You know, when you're looking at propaganda, among the best propaganda machines that you can get is going to be out of Britain or the United States, because we got to remember, you know, it's a lot of the mass media that's people are shown around the world. They actually come from, you know, those two countries primarily, and you got to understand that those same countries, you know, United States and Britain, they actually have their news in other languages around the world. Literally, they even got it in different tribal languages. Like BBC has multiple language pages dealing with that that can go to anybody because they have translators. And if you don't know anything about, you know, this technology, I mean, you got computers that can process and, you know, write things in other languages and basically post it as an article. It can be written by this person in English and read by somebody in 150 different languages, and they can get access to the same thing because they're watching and reading a lot of the same stuff just in another language. All right, so let's go ahead and continue on with his statement, because that's where we're wanting to kind of get things narrowed down into. He says, what happens then, Richard, is you've got real unrest. This challenges the political system, and it's all utterly unnecessary. So, let's see if you got things here. More quotes from him. Says, if you try and raise money to drill holes, it's almost impossible to get that money, Schwartzman said, adding that this is happening on an extremely wide-scale basis. Schwartzman called on governments to agree on the rules of the road so society can successfully get through the energy transition. It says there's unanimity, there's unanimity, something should be done. So basically it's unanimous, meaning that they've all in agreement. There's a level of basically an agreement or unity on this subject that something should be done. But how you get from where we are today to a green world is utterly undefined, okay, which is basically their end game. But he has to act as if he doesn't know, okay, because it's very rare that somebody on his level wouldn't know the agenda. But he can go to these different meetings, these different committees, and these different places. I think this is in Saudi Arabia, where he's talking to different people. And what they do is they do these things where they act like they don't know what the solution is, but they know what solution they're bringing. They just want people to buy into what? The problem first. So buy into the problem, feel the problem, see some of the unrest that comes out from it, then provide a solution for the people. And that solution you want to provide for the people is something you always wanted anyway. And guess what? They won't even know. They have no idea. So let's see what Larry Fink says. I did mention BlackRock earlier. BlackRock CEO Larry Fink said one of the problems is that policymakers are moving more aggressively to curb fossil fuels supply than demand. Short-term policies related to environmentalism in terms of restricting supply of hydrocarbons has created energy inflation, and we're going to be living with that for some time. Fink said at the conference. The energy crisis is one of the reasons that BlackRock Box doesn't think inflation is just a short-term problem, as the Federal Reserve and the White House have argued much of this year. Inflation is definitely more than transitory, Fink said. We're in a new regime. Now, the word transitory means that it's here and gone, okay? But now they're saying that it's more than transitory, meaning that it's here to stay, okay? That's why he's using this term, we're in a new regime. All right, so now they're using this, they're throwing this off. Now, this guy actually wrote the last article, if I'm not mistaken, Matt Egan. Yeah, he sure did. So now this is another one. This is from the 19th, which was last week. So you see they're building the agenda concerning this. I'm not going to read this. I'm just going to show you this. We're looking at the title, and we're going to get into it. It says, gas prices are high. That could mess with Biden's climate agenda. No, it won't. It won't mess with Biden's climate agenda because it is not Biden's climate agenda. All right? Now, this is from Bloomberg. This is written on the 25th of October. It says, energy crisis divides European nations at emergency meeting. Okay? So, luckily I'm able to get this because I think you have to sign up to get unlimited articles on Bloomberg. So it says here that Poland, Spain call for EU intervention amid spike in gas price. And remember, Poland and Spain already, they're not among the richer European Union countries, all right? So they're going to be feeling the effects of that more than many of the other countries, okay? So it says Germany, Netherlands warn against quick changes to EU markets. Okay, so this is the article. You got the energy, natural gas, carbon, power, and showing you how it's affected by the supply shortage, all right, and the percentage, okay? So carbon is not the issue, but power, natural gas. And it keeps going up. Okay, it trickled down a little bit, more than likely because, it went down. So something happened here to cause this spike, because this would have been pretty much, probably mid-September. And then it went down. It's leveling off, but it's still high. It's not going down like it was last year. All right. So it says the unprecedented energy crisis has become one of the hottest issues as the 27-nation bloc heads into the winter season, with households facing double-digit increases in electricity bills and some industrial giants curtailing production. Okay, so you got industry giants curtailing production because the cost is too high. Come on, man. This is what they're doing on purpose. This is happening. Remember the shortage. The shortage lesson with the shortages in goods. This is all interconnected. All right. Let's see. I don't see anything about Russia. Should see if there's anything, because usually Russia's brought into this whole thing, because Russia and the European Union have an interesting relationship because of the fact that Russia is actually able to supply some energy if need be, but there's a lot of political reasons as to why they're not as connected. All right, so don't see anything there. Let's look at this. I'm gonna go ahead and read. I'm gonna read from here. Now look, it also says Greece as well. Greece and Spain are part of the what's called the PIGS nations, which is basically the poor European Union nation states, so to speak. I think it's Portugal, Italy, Greece, and Spain. Okay, they're basically like welfare states for the European Union. They're just propped up in part because of the fact that they got that strong euro currency, and they're able to, have a lot more lax trading agreement, and their borders are not as restricted. Okay, because anybody that's part of the European Union is able to travel around without restrictions and participate in economic development across the 27 nation union, so to speak. So let's go ahead and read these paragraphs right here. It says we need a joint European response because we're talking about the single market for energy, said Sarah Igason, Spain's Secretary of State of Energy. We need a very urgent response to address the situation without though jeopardizing the process of decarbonization. It says the challenge for national governments and the regulators in Brussels is to come up with a solution that will keep the lights and heat on this winter while preserving support for the bloc's ambitious climate agenda. The crisis struck at a time when member states are considering a package known as Fit for 55 to implement a stricter 2030 emissions reductions target. Remember that. Remember the 2030 emissions reduction target, okay? So they're considering this package. It's like all of a sudden it just came up with this, like, oh man, we just got to come up with this energy crisis. Like, what do we do? You're going to see how they planned it out, okay? This is how they fool the people. For the medium term, a central part of the solution lies with cost-effective energy efficiency measures and the accelerated deployment of renewable energy sources. The 9 countries said in the document, we agree with the Commission that it is of utmost importance to swiftly proceed with the treatment of the Fit for 55 package to achieve climate neutrality by 2050. Okay, now, this is an article from Forbes, and basically, I'm not going to read this article, but you can actually, that's what I like about some of these, is that you can actually listen to the whole article by just pressing play rather than reading. It says, with higher prices and no growth, this oil boom is a bust. So basically, in the article, it's talking about how even though oil prices are skyrocketed, it's not leading to companies going out and trying to increase supply of this thing, which is something that's against like usual the usual thought process of a company. Here it is that you basically are an oil company that drills for oil, and you actually increase production as the price of oil goes up, so you can basically make profits on the oil that you get, so you can make the money in the market. But in this article, it talks about basically how that is not what's happening, all right, and how it's basically going counter to what they would usually do, all right, which shows you that there's an agenda going on because these businesses are not acting in accordance to the demand, all right. So let's go into this. Now, this is from the United Nations. This is right here. It's called the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, the Sustainable Development Goals, this was actually created back in 2015 at the General Assembly. It was brought up. Now, I'm going to just go ahead and read this paragraph, and I'm going to go into, the mission statement. We'll go into the actual part that deals with the subject at hand. So it says here, the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, or global goals are, remember the word global, okay, are a collection of 17 interlinked global goals designed to be a blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all. The SDGs were set up in the 2015 by the United Nations General Assembly and are intended to be achieved by the year 2030. So they already had a goal of 2030 for this thing. You're going to see exactly what I'm talking about because they have different agenda points. Now, by the way, the United Nations General Assembly back in 2015 when Obama was the president, that was actually the 70th anniversary of the United Nations. All right, so it was a very big deal, the 70th anniversary that they had. All right. I believe around that time, if I'm not mistaken, around that same month and time that this was being held, that's when Putin, I believe, sent, it was either Crimea or Syria during that time. He, did some military maneuvers out in one of those areas. And I remember it, but that there's something did happen with Putin in Russia, showing signs of aggression during that particular time that this 2015 General Assembly was going on. Now, it might have been Syria because I know there was a big conversation about, the issue in Syria with the war out there. All right. Now, if you go here, it says they are also they are included in the UN resolution called the 2030 Agenda. Now, some of y'all know it as Agenda 2030. All right, so it says the SDGs were developed in the post-2015 development agenda as the future global development framework to succeed the Millennial Development Goals, which ended in 2015. So you had another set of goals that was started in 2000. These are in 15-year increments. So in 2000, you had one set of goals that they had to meet by 2015, which they did meet. They met those goals by 2015. Maybe I might get into it another time, or y'all can go ahead and read it for yourself. But we're going to go ahead and go on into what this is about. Now, remember, there are 17 sustainable development goals. The one that we're referring to today is going to be the one dealing with this: affordable and clean energy. Okay? Affordable and clean energy. So let's go ahead and go here. I'm going to go look at this mission statement real quick. A blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all people and the world by 2030. And then it's the nonprofit. And this is the website. So I already have the website up. Let's go ahead and go there. So this is the SDGs. Okay, the Sustainable Development Goals.un.org. All right, so this is, remember, 2015. Again, another 15-year increment of goals that they're trying to basically reach by 2030. Now, this doesn't mean that we should think that the world's going to come to an end much later and that we should sit on our hands and that we shouldn't make haste for the day of the Lord. Remember, the Most High is in control of their time. They may think they may be able to do certain things. They may be able to get certain aspects of the agenda done, but there's other things they might not have done, and the Most High can still end everything. So we shouldn't have the mentality, because it says 2030, that Most High is going to let them fulfill their agenda fully, right? So this is the different areas it's going to go, and I believe it's at the bottom. You can just click directly, and we'll go to number 7. Okay, so we're going to read more. And it says ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. And then it has the overview, targets, indicators, and progress info. So it says 1/3 of the world's population is dangerous and inefficient cooking systems as of 2019, and it goes over the different issues globally. All right, and they say, oh, there's different parts of the world do not have energy, but why do they need energy to be available at some capacity to everybody? Because this is how they're going to be able to control their new world order, through a technocracy. Okay, so this is all part of their agenda, right? When you put all their goals together. So here they have different things that they wrote, publications, and it's all part of this, the stuff that we read, all these articles. It all falls in line with this, all of it. Okay, all right, and they're talking about the energy issue backed up by data and statistics. Now I can actually click on here, and you can see here Sustainable Development Goal 7, affordable and clean energy. This is from Wikipedia, by the way. And then it has the different targets. Okay, so look at this. We're not going to read everything. Okay, we're just going to read the bullet points. Target 7.1 says here, universal access to modern energy. And then here it has the share of population with access to electricity. And then you see the areas of the world that are very low, and they want it to be higher. Okay, and it has a percentage. The darker it is, the more people in those countries that have access to electricity. So that's the reason why they can't bring this really to these countries, because a lot of these countries in Africa and in Asia, they don't even have access to freaking energy anyway. So you can't even bring a energy crisis to them too much. It'll affect more of these countries that we named in the article. All right. So, and then of course, you got cities as well. in these other countries that are pretty large, and they will be affected if there was some kind of a major energy crisis as well. So target 7.2, increase global percentage of renewable energy. Target 7.3, double the improvement in energy efficiency. Target 7.8, promote access to research, technology, and investments in clean energy. Target 7.B, expand and upgrade energy services for developing countries, also known as emerging markets, like the CEO of, I believe, BlackRock said. All right, so developing countries means emerging markets as well. Okay. So then you have here finance received for clean energy. Okay. And you notice that the money's going from, the European Western, quote unquote, Western powers to these other countries. Isn't it interesting? Australia all the way out in, south below all these Asian countries and islands. You got this big old island right here, and it's, it doesn't need funding for some reason, but I digress on that one. So if you notice here, it tells you that this was also affected by the CV. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and move on, man. With this, Micah chapter 2, verse 1, woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it because it is in the power of their hand. Now, if you remember, one of the quotes early in one of the articles came from what? Think tanks. They think about this all the time. They devise iniquity. They plan this thing out. They have other goals that they've done years ago. They already, by the time it's 2015, the millennial goals from 2000 were already reached. They want to have this next one too. Remember, some of these things that they're going to reach it early in the stages. We know that there's other things going on as far as like the whole MOTB, which we'll get more in detail on, more than likely. Depending on how deep we go, it'll probably end up on BitChute, by the way, so keep an eye on that. But this is what they do. They think about this, and they think about it and practice it. All right. Now, this is Psalm 49:11. Their inward thought is that their houses shall continue forever, and their dwelling places to all generations. They call their lands after their own names. So these people, they are the ones, okay, that believe that their houses will continue from generation to generation. Okay, and many people think that as well, especially the proud and arrogant that rule this world, that they will continue to pass down their goodies down to their children and their children's children, and that they shall dwell safely. So this is what they believe. That's why they can put these, crazy goals. Just like Yahawashi said, think not to say that tomorrow or next week we'll go doing this and that, for you don't know what your life holds. But them and their arrogance, they have whole goals that they'll write out 10 years down the road as if they're going to reach them. Okay? And as if they got the power to reach them. But the Most High can stop that, and those goals become nothing but vanity. All right? So, go ahead and finish it off. This is Job chapter 5 and verse 8. I would seek unto God, and unto God would I commit my cause, which doeth great things and unsearchable, marvelous things without number, who giveth rain upon the earth and sendeth waters upon the fields, to set up on high those that be low, that those which mourn may be exalted to safety. And what does he do? He disappointeth the devices of the crafty, so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. He taketh the counsel of these people all the time. He laughs at them. That's why it says that he that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh, because the counsel that these people have, when they come together with their assemblies, their committee, their meetings, and they talk about it in their think tanks, their tribal commission, their Bilderberg groups, and all these different places where they have these councils. They really believe that they are so close to their New World Order agenda, and they believe that the people are going to all completely fall for it, but there's a remnant and elect that the Most High is preserving that's going to see through these things, and they're going to be the ones that will be delivered from them. All right? So He taketh the wise in their own craftiness, and the counsel of the froward is carried headlong. They meet with darkness in the daytime, and grope in the noonday as in the night. But he saveth the poor from the sword, from their mouth, and from the hand of the mighty. Okay, so the Most High is going to deliver those people. Because remember, what they're trying to do is trying to create a situation of hurt and pain by impoverishing people. But the Most High is going to deliver those the poor of his people, those that believe upon him in the time of trouble. Okay, and there's nothing that they can do that's going to separate, the Most High and his Son from his elect. All right, so hopefully, this is edifying. And again, I want to give all glory and praises to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahawashi. Grace and mercy be abound to the hopeful elect scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. Shalom.